viewers, you're welcome back to Omashone. Today we'll be doing exploration of titles in unseen poetry. In this video, we'll be diving into how the title of a poem can give us a significant insight into its themes, tone, and the subject matter. Why don't you join me on this ride? Right. By the end of this video, you should be able to say that you can explore the significance of titles in unseen poetry. So these are keywords you should know and familiarize yourself with as we're moving on in this lesson. And the first is rendezvous, which means a meeting at an agreed time and place. Monosyllabic, a word or utterance consisting of just one syllable, e.g., come. Plosive are sounds that are articulated with an abrupt release of air, such as the sound b, b, or t, or k, or g, as the case may be. Then somber, that means having or conveying a feeling of deep seriousness and sadness. And of course, the last I have here is polysyllabic, more like the opposite of monosyllabic. A polysyllabic word is a word that has more than one syllable, e.g., syllable. Of course, syllable has more than one syllable, like syllable, right? Got that? Good, you. Let's move on. So, we'll be starting with exploring Brooks' title, The Dead. That's what we'll be starting with. So let's get to see what we have here. Now, like I said, we will be considering how a poem's title can be used to clarify the meaning of the poem in terms of themes and subject matter. So let's look at something. You can actually pause and ponder on this question. Why do you think an analysis of the title of a poem is important? Have you asked yourself that question? Of course, I have some students who will be sharing their own ideas with us, and they are Sophia. Let's start with Sophia. Sophia has for us that it's a first introduction to the poem and it sets the tone and mood for the rest of the poem. Do you agree with Sophia that the title is actually the first introduction to the poem? Of course, that is it. That's the face of the poem. That's the first thing you meet when you see a poem or when you encounter a poem. So the title actually sets the tone, the mood for the rest of the poem. It is true. Now let's check our understanding so far. Which of the following statements about analyzing the title is accurate? Which of them do you think? Is it A, B, or C? You can pause this video and pick your options. Alright, can we move on? Good. If you chose option letter B, you are correct, because analysis of the title can help us consider the tone. Yes, it can help us consider the tone. And the tone is more like a writer's attitude toward what is saying or what is discussing, as you want to put it. When looking at the title of a poem for the first time, you might ask yourself the following questions. What are the connotations of the word? When we say connotation, that is the added meaning you can associate with a word. What impression do you form about the poem? From the title, looking at the title, what do you think? What is your view of the poem without having to read it yet? How many words are in the title? Does this suggest a focal point of the theme? Are the words monosyllabic or polysyllabic? I've explained that to you already. How might this affect the tone? Are there any literary techniques in the title? For example, if you look at the title of the poem, Do Not Go Gentle Into That Good Night by Thomas Dylan, you see that there is the use of metaphor. That good night, a metaphoric representation of death, right? So, is there any literary technique you could identify from the title. Then, if you've been able to identify them, ask yourself, how might this affect the tone? Now it's time to explore our first poem by Rupert Brooks, which is The Dead. Now you may want to pause this video and ruminate on this question. What exactly is your immediate reaction to the title? You've seen the title. Now let's hear from our students and see what they say. Laura said, it strikes me as quite abrupt. While Easy said, yes, zooming in on the word dead makes me think it will be a somber poem. I made use of the word zooming in. When you are analyzing literature, it's more like you, a cameraman or a photographer, taking a picture in a landscape, as like in a field view. But on the field, there are several things therein. So what you do, you may want to pick out a certain object. What you do, you zoom in on that object, and that's what Easy is actually saying here. That is looking critically at a particular word. It means you're zooming in on that word. Now, let's discuss. How might you respond to the following question about the title, The Dead? What are the connotations of the word? What impression do you form about the poem? How many words are in the title? And does this suggest a focal point of the theme? Are the words monosyllabic, like I've mentioned already, or polysyllabic? How might this affect the tone? Are there any literary techniques and how it will affect the tone? How will you respond to the following questions? Let's see the mind map Sophia has given us. Sophia has said that the definite article, the, suggests importance, and capitalizing the word dead shows collective importance, and it implies that the poem will be elevating those who have died and giving them a voice. Of course, the dead don't talk, so the living are the ones who could give a voice to the dead. But Sophia didn't stop there. She still goes on with the notice of the monosyllabic nature of the words in the title. The, just one syllable. Dead, just one syllable. And she said that the monosyllabic word imply abruptness. That is, maybe mimicking the transition from life to death, and suggests only focal point of the poem is the dead. You getting it? And of course, you know, the distance between life and death is not so much. As I'm even talking to you, it could happen and you're done. Just abrupt. It doesn't take time. Then she also goes on to look at the sound devices. So, like when you're analyzing poems, all your sense organs must be at alert. You must use all of them. Your sense of hearing, your sense of touch, your sense of taste, all of the senses must be at alert. So now you can hear the plosive sound d, d, d on dead. And she says that the plosive sounds in the title perhaps mimic the act of death. Ask the reader to put themselves in the shoes of the dead. It's discussion time again. Now, what do you think the poem will be about based on the title? Pause the video and ask yourself that question. Have you been able to give yourself an answer to it? Like as usual, let's see what our learners have to say. Sam says, I think it's going to be giving the dead a voice, perhaps a reflection on their lives. And yeah, Alex says, I think it's going to be an idea of what afterlife is like. How relevant or how close to the subject matter of the poem is each of their responses? Let's keep on exploring this poem. But before we go on, let's check our knowledge so far. Which element of Brooks' title creates a sense of elevated importance? You may want to choose more than one option. So, have you chosen yours? Alright, check out. If you chose A and D and C, that means you are doing well. You'll be following the video so far, and the lesson is having impact on you. So let's proceed. Now it's time to read the poem The Dead. A copy of the poem can be found in the additional material, and the additional material has been added as a link to the video on YouTube. So you can search out for at Omashone on YouTube, and you on the description for the video or for this video you will see a link that takes you to where you can find the poem The Dead by Rupert Brooke. Now this is what you will be looking at. What is the poem about? Is it what you expected based on the title? But let's read together here. These hearts were woven of human joys and cares, washed marvelously with sorrow, swift to men. The years had given them kindness, dawn was theirs, and sunset, and the colors of the earth. These had seen movement, and heard music, known slumber and waking, loved, gone proudly friended, felt the quick stir of wonder, sat alone, touched flowers and flowers and cheeks. All this is ended. There are waters blown by changing winds to laughter, and lit by the rich skies all day. And after, frost with a gesture stays the waves that dance in wandering loveliness. He leaves a white unbroken glory, a gathered radiance, a width, a shining peace under the night. Right, how was my reading? Poor, you would say, don't mind me, but let's go on with the exploration. Alright, we have Lucas and Jacob. Lucas said the first stanza shows the richness of life coming to an end, but the second stanza then shows the peaceful nature of death. I think Lucas is quite smart. But here Jacob also says that I expected the poem to focus solely on the afterlife rather than a reflection on their lives before death. I want to let you know that in literature, you are usually always free to express yourself however you wish, so long your responses are based on identifiable evidence from the poem or from the text you are analyzing. Check your understanding. Is it true or false? Brooke implies a sense of dread surrounding the idea of death. Is it true? False? Alright, pause and check. Alright, if you chose false, you're right. Brooke made death to seem so harmless, so cool, so peaceful, more like a nice thing. So how do you justify your answer? Are you going to pick A or B? Now check if you picked B, you're correct. He uses such words as peace and radiance to describe the afterlife. So, as far as Brooke is concerned, death is more or less radiant and peaceful. Now, here are some words from the poem you may want to zoom into for you to get some deeper meaning. such words as glory, peace, radiance, night. Now, how might we connect an analysis of these words to an analysis of the title? Can you write a short answer yet on this prompt? Let's see what you could consider. You may want to look at how the monosyllabic nature of the title might connect to ideas of peace, dead, peace, like the dead, peace, maybe the dead, the peace. Have you thought of something like that? And you want to look at how the use of definite article and capitalization might relate to glory. Can you see that? So let's proceed and see a response by one of our learners. Brooks' use of the definite article and the capitalization in the dead bestows a sense of importance unto those who died, which is reflected in the glory and the radiance of the poem. Perhaps Brooks intended for us to see their deaths as a worthy sacrifice. You understand? So, moreover, the monosyllabic nature of the dead could connect to the sense of peace in the afterlife, and that suggests we shouldn't be afraid of death. This is a typical way to respond to prompts like the ones I've given. You get that? But if we wouldn't stop there, you can still proceed on by extending Sophia's answer by saying, furthermore, the poem's final word night could connect to the plosive sounds in the title because they could both reflect how their lives have come to an end, but there is a release and peace to be found in the night. Can you see that? Have you learned anything so far? If you've learned anything, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And of course, in the next part of this video, we'll be exploring Seeger's title. Now let's read the following poem. I have a rendezvous with death at some disputed barricade when spring comes back with rustling shades and apple blossoms fill the air. I have a rendezvous with death when spring brings back blue days and fair. It may be he shall take my hand and lead me into his dark land and close my eyes and quench my breath. It may be I shall pass him still. I have a rendezvous with death on some scarred slope of battered hill when spring comes round again this year and the first meadow flower appear. God knows 'twere better to be deep, pillowed in silk and scented down, where love throbs out in blissful sleep. Pulse nigh to pulse, and breath to breath, where hushed awakenings are dear. But I have a rendezvous with death at midnight in some flaming town, when spring trip not again this year, and I, to my pledged word, I am true. I shall not fail that rendezvous. How was my reading? Now it's discussion time. What do you think the poem is about? What do you think the poem is about? Of course, our learners are here to always share their opinions. And let's check what Lucas has said. He says, I think the poem is about someone coming to terms with the fact that they will die soon. And Jacob says, yes, I specifically think it's about someone fighting in a war because of the references to barricades and flaming town. Can you see? Boys think deep. Yes, that is correct actually. barricades, you see them war front, like in the trenches. Correct. And let's check our knowledge. Which of the statements about the poem is true? Have you paused the video? You can unpause now if you've chosen your answer. Yes, if you chose B, you are correct, because the speaker suggests they know they will die, because it says, I have a rendezvous with death. It means you know you're going to. You get it? Cool you. Now let's move on. What title would you give to the poem? Let's check it out. Laura says here, I might give the title, The Dead Shall Take My Hand, because it seems to fit with the tone of the poem. That's what Laura thinks. And Alex says, I think I would pick the title, I Have a Rendezvous with Death, because it's repeated throughout the poem. Now, let's get something straight here. Both Alex and Laura are correct here. Of course, as you would have known, Alex's option is actually the correct title for the poem. But that doesn't make Laura's opinion to be invalid. So the point here I want to make is you being free to be able to make your point and explain it coherently and cogently. Now, let's discuss. How might you respond to the following question about the title, I Have a Rendezvous with Death? What are the connotations of the word? What impressions you form about the poem? How many words are in the title? Does this suggest a focal point of the theme? Are the words monosyllabic or polysyllabic? How this might affect the tone? Are there any literary technique in the title? How might this affect the tone? Let's consider what Sophia has to say. And she says, the word I means individual, personal experience. Then have implies it hasn't happened yet, but they know it will. Now, rendezvous, friendly, informal. Of course, when you have a rendezvous with someone, you know having a meeting precisely with someone, like a formal meeting, like a free meeting, a chit-chat meeting. She thinks it's surprising, as we normally think of that as somber. Then we also have multiple words, which could suggest the speaker is trying to alleviate the fear around death by not making it the focal point. And of course, the word rendezvous is polysyllabic, which makes it sounds gentle, because the polysyllabic words generally connotes slowness, gentility, not the abrupt of the monosyllabic types of words. And then we have death personified, which implies a connection to death. Say, I have a rendezvous with death. And of course, you don't have a rendezvous with something you cannot relate with. So death here is more like someone that could see, that could hear, that could feel, that could talk, that could fraternize or socialize. Let's check our lesson so far. True or false? The title, I Have a Rendezvous with Death, implies that the speaker is aware of their impending death. Have you unpaused yet? Alright, you chosen? Yes, it is true. And how do you justify your answer? Are you picking A or B? If you picked B, you are correct, because the title conveys a sense of acceptance of their impending death. Say, I have a rendezvous. You getting it? You're going to meet up with that. Now it's time for us to go back to reread the poem, I Have a Rendezvous with Death. Like I've told you, you'll find a copy of this poem in the additional material that I've added as a link in the description to this video on YouTube. Here, Sophia has picked the following quotation from the poem. He said, he shall take my hand. She also picks apple blossoms fill the air. First middle flowers appear. So these are what Sophia has picked. What argument do you think Sophia might be making about the speaker's rendezvous with them? How might she intend to connect it with the title? Let's see what Lucas and Alex's discussion has for us. How well does it align with your idea? Lucas says, the references to blossoms and flowers suggest that the speaker is trying to make them sound pleasant and welcoming. Does that align with what you think? And Alex said, yes, the rendezvous in the title makes it sound like a mutual agreement rather than something to be scared of. If you are in line with them, it shows that you are actually learning in this lesson. Kudos to you. But mind you, you mustn't always be on the same time with everyone. But if what your ideas are similar to what I have here, you're doing well. Let's summarize all what we've done so far. The poem's title can be used to clarify the meaning of the poem in terms of themes and subject matter. You can analyze the title of the poem alongside your analysis of the quotes. A poem's title often gives an indication of the atmosphere and tone. As you have seen in this video, titles are powerful gateways into the world of poetry. They set the tone, hit our themes, and invite us to explore deeper meanings that the poem has for us. Keep these strategies in mind when you meet new poems and let the title guide the interpretation. Thank you for joining us. Happy analyzing. See you in our next video. Don't forget, this is actually one in the series of videos on exploring unseen poetry. We'll be seeing some other videos. Please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Alright, so please, I need your comment. Any question you have for me, you can always put them in the comment section wherever you see this video, whether Facebook, YouTube, TikTok, X, Instagram, anyway, just drop your comment. See you in our next video.